I was scared to death. I have not looked through the eyepiece of a camera at an actor in all that length of time. What would my first film be about?
We watch this movie every December. It's a Wonderful Life didn't arrive like a cheerful Christmas tradition. It came into the world bruised, shaking, and unsure of itself. A director still hurting from the war, an actor trying to feel normal again. A story climbing out of its own darkness before it ever reached the screen. Behind the gentle snow were mistakes, stress, real fears, and a forgotten filing error that later brought the movie back when everyone thought it was gone. These are the 35 strangest secrets hiding in Bedford Falls, where broken pieces somehow turned into magic. Fact number 1. This wasn't supposed to be a Christmas movie. We grew up thinking this was the Christmas movie. Every December, there it was, playing on loop while we decorated trees and wrapped presents. Frank Capra never wanted it anywhere near the holidays. The studio scheduled it for January 1947. Then RKO's actual Christmas film, Sinbad the Sailor, wasn't ready. Panicked executives begged Capra to finish early. December 20th, 1946, just 5 days before Christmas, they dumped it into theaters with barely any marketing. That last-minute scramble killed the box office. Critics thought the dark suicide storyline was too heavy for the season. Audiences stayed away. The movie that defines Christmas nearly died because it became a Christmas movie. But the strangest part is still ahead. Fact number 2. It started as a Christmas card nobody wanted.
Kids, Janie! Janie, call me!
Philip Van Doren Stern had a dream in 1938. Woke up with a complete short story in his head, a man who sees what the world would be like if he'd never been born. Every publisher rejected it. Every magazine said no. By 1943, Stern was so frustrated, he printed 200 copies himself, folded them into Christmas cards, and mailed them to family and friends. That was it. His entire publication strategy. One of those cards ended up in Hollywood. RKO bought it for $10,000, thinking they'd make it a Cary Grant vehicle. 3 failed screenplays later, Grant walked away. The project sat dead on a shelf. Until Frank Capra came home from the war and saw something nobody else did. Sometimes the best gifts come in the plainest wrapping. But the Bedford Falls set itself, that's where things get real. Fact number 3. The town was real enough to live in.
You just... Uh-oh.
Bedford Falls feels like a real town. Main Street, the drugstore, the building and loan, that bridge. You can almost walk it in your memory. Capra built a 4-acre town on the RKO Ranch, one of the largest movie sets ever constructed. 75 buildings, a main street stretching 3 city blocks. He planted 20 full-grown oak trees that had to be transported and replanted. Here's what makes it heartbreaking. Capra released pigeons, cats, and dogs to roam the set freely. He wanted it to feel lived in. For 90 days, Bedford Falls existed. People worked there, walked those streets, lived inside those homes. In 1954, they demolished every inch. Today, it's suburban housing developments. The town that saved George Bailey couldn't save itself. And speaking of things that shouldn't exist, fact number 4, the snow you could finally hear dialogue through.
My mouse bleep! What do you know about that? Merry Christmas!
Old Christmas movies crunch so loud you can barely hear the actors. That's because Hollywood snow was painted cornflakes. Every winter scene needed dialogue dubbed in later because the crunch drowned out everything. Frank Capra hated it. He wanted to record sound live, capture real emotion, not fake it weeks later in a booth. So he and special effects wizard Russell Shearman invented something new. Foamite mixed with soap, sugar, and water. 6,000 gallons of it. Silent, soft, left perfect footprints. The Motion Picture Academy gave them a technical award for inventing snow that actually let you hear the movie. Every snow scene in films after 1946 owes something to this. But here's where production got uncomfortable. Fact number 5. They filmed winter in a heat wave.
Hey, send me some of those picture postcards, will you, George?
Hey, George, don't take any plug nickels.
Heavy wool coats, scarves, winter hats, fake snow piled everywhere, perfect frozen Christmas Eve. And it's 90 degrees outside. Principal photography ran April through July 1946 right through California summer. Temperatures soared above 90 degrees while the cast performed in full winter costumes under hot stage lights It got so extreme, Capra had to give everyone a day off just to recover from heat exhaustion. People were passing out. Watch the bridge scene closely. You can see James Stewart sweating. That's not acting. That's not fear. That's a man in winter clothing genuinely overheating while pretending to contemplate suicide in a snowstorm. Christmas in July, literally. And even the camera crew couldn't stay stable. Fact number 6, 3 cinematographers shot 1 movie. Most films have 1 director of photography. This one burned through 3. Capra thought original cinematographer Victor Milner was too slow. When Milner got sick, Capra borrowed Joseph Walker from Columbia, the man who'd shot 19 previous Capra films. Then Rosalind Russell demanded Walker return immediately to shoot her next picture. Walker trained camera operator Joseph Byrock to replace him mid-shoot. 3 different cinematographers. Different sections of 1 film. Somehow it worked. Walker later said it succeeded because each section was so visually different they didn't need to match. The childhood flashbacks, the adult present, the nightmare alternate reality, each got its own visual fingerprint. 3 sets of eyes to capture 1 man's life. And speaking of first takes, fact number 7, Donna Reed's secret athletic past.
Why don't you go home?
That's where I'm going. I don't know why I came here in the first place.
That beautiful scene where Mary throws a rock at the old Granville house. The window shatters perfectly. Romantic, magical. Frank Capra didn't trust his leading lady to pull it off. He hired a professional marksman to stand off camera with instructions to shoot out the window if Reed missed. Cameras rolled. Reed wound up and fired that rock. The window exploded. Everyone just stared. Turns out Reed had played baseball in high school. Powerful throwing arm. Did it in 1 take. The marksman stood there with nothing to do. Reed looked pleased with herself. Capra kept that perfect first take. Sometimes the actress knows more than the director. Now things get darker. Fact number 8. The star was broken inside. James Stewart looked perfect in 1946, America's favorite son, home from the war. That familiar smile, what we couldn't see were the nightmares. The shaking hands. The weight loss so severe he could only keep down peanut butter and ice cream. The hearing damage from bomber engines that made it hard to catch his cues. Stewart flew 20 combat missions over Germany. Saw 130 men die in a single mission. Men he knew. Experienced flak-happy severe PTSD. He'd been grounded after psychological breakdown. This was his first film in 4 years. When Capra first pitched him a movie about a suicidal man, Stewart walked out of the meeting. He couldn't handle it. Couldn't imagine playing someone that desperate because he was living it. He only came back because he had no other job offers. Every time George Bailey falls apart on screen, you're watching James Stewart's real trauma bleeding through. And it got even more raw. Fact number 9. The prayer scene wasn't acting.
Get me back to my wife and kids. Help me, Clarence, please.
That moment in Martini's bar when George collapses and prays desperately. I'm not a praying man, but if you're up there. James Stewart wasn't acting. He broke. The tears, the sobbing, the complete collapse that was Stewart's real PTSD pouring out in front of cameras. Capra saw what was happening and just let it roll. Didn't call cut. Afterward, Capra had the shot reframed and blown up to capture that expression on Stewart's face. That's why it looks grainier. It's been enlarged because Capra wanted every detail of Stewart's genuine breakdown preserved. We thought we were watching George Bailey pray. We were watching James Stewart survive. Not all accidents were emotional. Fact number 10, the crash that made the movie better. Uncle Billy stumbles home drunk. George starts going back inside. Then enormous crash off screen. Billy yelling, "I'm all right, I'm all right." George laughs. None of it was scripted. A crew member dropped a large tray of props right after Thomas Mitchell walked off camera. Mitchell heard it and immediately improvised in character. James Stewart's laugh? Completely genuine. He was cracking up at the accident, at Mitchell's quick thinking. Capra kept it in the final cut. Gave the clumsy stagehand a $10 bonus for improving the sound. Sometimes the best moments are the ones nobody planned. And speaking of unplanned, fact number 11, Stewart's first kiss in 5 years.
George.
That intimate phone kiss between George and Mary. The way they lean into each other, sharing the receiver, unable to resist getting closer. James Stewart was terrified to film it. his first on-screen kiss since returning from the war. 5 years away from Hollywood, from romantic roles. He was nervous, rusty, unsure if he could still do this part of acting. Capra saw his anxiety and made a decision. One take, unrehearsed, just let instinct guide them. It worked so well, Capra had to cut part of the embrace because it was too passionate and violated censorship rules. They were too believable. 5 years of war, 5 years of trauma. And Stewart still remembered how to make us believe in love. Here's where the film gets stranger. Fact number 12. The villain who never faced justice.
Oh, I suppose I should give it to miserable failures like you and that idiot brother.
Movie villains always got their comeuppance in the 1940s. The production code literally required it. Except in this film. Mr. Potter steals $8,000, frames George for embezzlement, drives a man to attempt suicide on Christmas Eve, and at the end, nothing happens. He keeps the money, zero consequences. Frank Capra deliberately violated censorship rules. The Hays Code explicitly stated criminals must be punished or shown repenting. Capra didn't care. He wanted Potter to win because that's real life. Sometimes the rich and powerful just win. It bothered audiences in 1946. Still bothers people today. Evil doesn't always get punished. Sometimes it just gets richer. And speaking of cuts, fact number 13. The attack dogs that vanished. The version we know is already scary. A child falls through the ice. The original version was worse. Mr. Potter literally sicked attack dogs on 2 kids. The boys were playing hockey on Potter's property. George's stray puck broke Potter's no trespassing sign. Potter, enraged, ordered his gardener to release attack dogs on the children. Harry fell through the ice while running from the dogs. George still saved him, still lost his hearing, but this time while escaping a wealthy man's attack animals. Capra removed the dogs. Made it an accident instead of class warfare. That first instinct tells you something about what this movie wanted to say about Potter. Then there's the wheelchair. Fact number 14. Potter's wheelchair wasn't in the script. Mr. Potter wasn't originally written as disabled. Just a mean old man who walked around being terrible. Then Lionel Barrymore was cast. By 1946, Barrymore had broken his hip twice. Severe arthritis. He'd been in a wheelchair since 1938 and would never walk again. When Capra hired him, the wheelchair came with the casting. Louis B. Mayer had instructed studios to rewrite scripts to accommodate Barrymore's wheelchair. He was too valuable to lose. In Potter's case, it made him more complex. His bitterness felt deeper, his cruelty more pointed. Sometimes limitations create better art, and only 2 pieces of Bedford Falls survive. Fact number 15, the 2 locations still standing. That massive 4-acre Bedford Falls set, demolished in 1954. Gone. Bulldozed for suburban housing. But 2 locations survived. First, the swimming pool under the gymnasium floor. Still there at Beverly Hills High School, still functions, still has the moving floor. You can see it today, 78 years later. Second, Martini's house exterior at 4587 Vero Road in La Cañada, Flintridge. Private residence now, but the building stands. Everything else, the bridge, the building and loan, the drugstore, exists only in film now. Sometimes the most important places only exist in our hearts. Now things get really dark. Fact number 16. The FBI thought it was communist propaganda.
Hello? George, there is a rumor around town that you've closed your doors.
It's 1947. The Red Scare is heating up. J. Edgar Hoover's FBI is watching movies looking for hidden Soviet messaging, including a heartwarming Christmas film about an angel. May 1947. An unnamed FBI agent filed a report claiming It's a Wonderful Life used common tricks employed by communists. Their evidence? The film portrayed banker Mr. Potter as villainous, which deliberately maligned the upper class. They also flagged screenwriters Francis Goodrich and Albert Hackett for eating lunch with known communists. Eating lunch, that was enough. The film stayed on the FBI's propaganda watch list for a decade, until 1956. 10 years of government surveillance because a Christmas movie suggested maybe bankers shouldn't steal. The irony? Both Capra and Stewart were lifelong Republicans who never voted for FDR. And it got even more official. Fact number 17. Congress actually held a hearing.
Hey, this is my day.
Oh, why don't you stop annoying?
Well, I'm sorry.
The FBI report wasn't enough. In 1947, the House Un-American Activities Committee held a formal hearing about It's a Wonderful Life. Film critic John Charles Moffat was called to testify to defend a Christmas movie in front of Congress about whether an angel earning his wings was Soviet propaganda. Moffat stood firm. Though it had a banker as villain, it could not properly be called a communist picture. It showed that money can be used oppressively and benevolently. Congress eventually dropped it. But for a while there, Bedford Falls was under federal investigation. Then came the mistake that saved everything. Fact 18, the clerical error that created a tradition to one.
Kids, Janie! Janie, call me!
In 1974, a clerk at NTA Studios had one job: file the copyright renewal paperwork for It's a Wonderful Life. They forgot. The copyright lapsed. The film entered public domain. Suddenly, any television station could broadcast it without paying a cent. So they did. Constantly. WMCA in New York played it 6 times on Christmas Day. Other stations ran it back to back for 24 hours. You could channel surf and find it on 3 stations simultaneously. For nearly 20 years, It's a Wonderful Life was free. Everywhere. Inescapable. That's when it became America's Christmas movie. Not in 1946 when it flopped. In the 70s and 80s when a clerical error made it impossible to avoid. In 1993, Republic Pictures reclaimed control. But by then, the tradition was carved in stone. Sometimes the best things happen because someone forgot to file paperwork. The story gets more heartbreaking. Fact 19. Zuzu never saw the movie.
Now, will you do something for me? Will you try and get some sleep?
Carolyn Grimes was 6 years old when she spoke the film's most famous line. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. 2 years later, her mother died of early onset Alzheimer's. Carolyn was 14. 1 year after that, her father was killed in a car accident. She was 15, an orphan. The court sent her from Hollywood to rural Missouri to live with strict relatives she described as religious fanatics who forbade watching movies, singing, dancing. Her acting career ended that day. When Jimmy Stewart's secretary finally tracked her down in the 1980s, Carolyn Grimes was 40 years old, raising 7 children, working as a medical technologist. She had never watched It's a Wonderful Life. Not once. She finally saw it as a middle-aged woman and broke down crying, understanding for the first time what the movie meant, what her role represented. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. But sometimes real life doesn't give you wings, only survival. And finally, fact 20, this Christmas classic was a disaster.
Welcome home, Mr. Bailey.
We think of this as cinema's greatest triumph. It wasn't. The budget started at $1.54 million. Final cost reached $3.78 million. To break even, it needed to gross $6.3 million. It failed spectacularly. Mixed reviews. Empty theaters. The New York Times called it overly sentimental. Audiences thought the suicide storyline was too dark. 5 Academy Award nominations, it won 0. Swept aside by the best years of our lives, the financial failure nearly destroyed Capra's reputation. Liberty Films, the independent company he'd founded specifically to make this movie, dissolved in 1951, just 5 years after release. Frank Capra bet everything on showing America that every life matters. America didn't show up to watch. It took 30 years and a copyright error for anyone to care. But wait, 15 more secrets are still hidden. Fact 21, Alfalfa opened the pool. That mischievous teenager at the high school dance who opens the gymnasium floor, remember him? That's Carl Alfalfa Switzer from Our Gang, the Little Rascals. The gap-toothed kid with the cowlick who sang off-key through the 1930s? By 1946, he'd grown up. Hollywood still cast him as troublemakers. He played Freddie Othello, completely uncredited. Just a quick bit part, opening that floor switch out of jealousy. Alfalfa caused their love story to begin, and nobody got the credit screen to tell them who he was. That pool still exists at Beverly Hills High School, still works. Alfalfa's prank outlived him by decades. Speaking of unexpected casting, fact number 22. Jesus played the drunk pharmacist.
It's me, Mr. Gower, George Bailey.
You're late.
H. B. Warner, who played Mr. Gower, was world famous for one very specific role: Jesus Christ. In 1927, he starred in Cecil B. DeMille's The King of Kings. Warner was 49 playing the 30-year-old Messiah. Audiences believed every second. Serene, compassionate, divine. 20 years later, Capra cast him as a grief-stricken drunk who nearly poisons a child. From the Son of God to a man who almost commits manslaughter in his despair. Warner had also studied medicine before becoming an actor, making his pharmacist role eerily fitting. Sometimes the greatest falls aren't about physical distance. Sometimes they're about going from divinity to barely holding on to humanity. The darkest secret involves a child. Fact number 23. The blood and tears were real.
My mouth's bleeding, Bert.
In that drugstore scene where Mr. Gower slaps young George, it looks brutal. The kid's crying, his face is red, he's genuinely terrified. That's because it wasn't acting. H. B. Warner was actually drunk during filming. Capra wanted authentic emotion, so he let Warner drink on set. Then cameras rolled and Warner slapped child actor Robert J. Anderson so hard his ear started bleeding. Real blood, real pain. Anderson later said, "He actually bloodied my ear. My face was red and I was in tears." The tears you see aren't performance. They're a traumatized child being struck by an intoxicated adult while cameras captured it for art. After filming stopped, Warner hugged Anderson, deeply apologetic. But the damage was done. The take was perfect. Capra kept it. Then there was the replacement. Fact number 24. Harry Bailey wasn't supposed to exist.
George, darling, where are you? Oh, George.
Todd Carnes played Harry Bailey, George's younger brother, the war hero, the one who gets to leave. Actor David McKay was originally cast. Rehearsals had started. Then, just before principal photography, McKay's draft status changed. He got called up. Todd Carnes replaced him at the last minute. He'd just returned from serving in the Army Air Corps himself. Everything you see between George and Harry, the tension, the love, the resentment, the sacrifice, all of it happened because one actor got drafted and another came home from war just in time. Sometimes the most important relationships exist only because of timing. And here's who became a legend. Fact number 25. Nick the bartender created spin-offs.
We save hard drinks in here for men who want to get drunk fast.
Sheldon Leonard played Nick, the bartender who sneers at George and throws him into the snow. Just a bit part. A character actor playing a heavy, except Sheldon Leonard went on to revolutionize television. He later produced The Andy Griffith Show, The Dick Van Dyke Show, casting Bill Cosby in I Spy, making Cosby one of TV's first black leading men. He's credited with introducing motion picture techniques to TV sitcoms and inventing the spin-off format. The writers of The Big Bang Theory loved his work so much they named Sheldon Cooper and Leonard Hofstadter after him. That bartender kicking George out, he basically created modern television comedy. And there's a tiny detail that's delightful. Fact number 26. The 1750 improvisation.
You got any money in the bank? You better hurry.
During the bank run scene, Ellen Corby played Miss Davis, nervously asking to withdraw her savings. In rehearsals, her line was, "I'd like to withdraw $17, please." Right before cameras rolled, Capra whispered, "Ask for $17.50 instead. It'll be funnier." She did. Both her delivery and Stewart's reaction to the oddly specific amount were unrehearsed and genuine. Capra understood that specificity is funnier than round numbers. Nobody withdraws exactly $17. But $17.50? That's someone who knows exactly what they need. Ellen Corby went on to win 3 Emmys for the Waltons. But that $17.50 might be her most memorable moment. Speaking of small details, fact number 27. Uncle Billy's Pet was a film legend. Notice that raven perched in Uncle Billy's office? That's Jimmy the Raven, Frank Capra's good luck charm. Jimmy appeared in You Can't Take It With You and every single Capra film afterward. The bird became a fixture on sets. Everyone knew him. The Raven had a longer professional relationship with Frank Capra than most human actors. When you see that bird, you're seeing Capra's signature. His little insider nod. A good luck charm that traveled through decades of cinema, perched quietly in the background, watching everything. Here's something about money. Fact number 28. That $17.50 would buy groceries for weeks.
George, I am going all out to help in this crisis.
Miss Davis withdrew $17.50 during the 1928 bank run. Seems like nothing, right? In 1928 dollars, adjusted for inflation, that equals approximately $298 today. Still modest, but enough to buy groceries for a family for a couple of weeks back then. The film gets these details right. This wasn't someone withdrawing life savings. This was someone protecting what little they had when banks were failing everywhere. Miss Davis knew exactly what $17.50 meant to her. And speaking of what mattered, fact number 29, Capra called it his masterpiece.
Well, you remember my kid sister Mary.
Oh, yeah.
Frank Capra directed classics. It Happened One Night won 5 Academy Awards. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is one of the greatest American films. You can't take it with you won Best Picture. But ask Capra which was his favorite, which meant the most. Always the same answer. It's a Wonderful Life. It's my favorite film. It epitomizes everything I've been trying to say. Every Christmas he screened it for his family. Every year he returned to Bedford Falls. James Stewart felt the same way. 6-decade career, dozens of classics. This was his favorite too. And someone counted something. Fact number 30. 42 angels got their wings.
George. That's all Harry ever talks about.
Clarence tells George that every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. Someone sat down and counted every single bell sound throughout the entire film. 42 times, which means, according to Clarence's theology, 42 angels earned their wings during this story. Not just Clarence, 41 others we never meet. It's a detail that doesn't matter at all, and it matters completely. Here's something about the town. Fact number 31. Bedford Falls was exactly 3 blocks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bailey.
Main Street stretched precisely 300 yards. 3 city blocks exactly. 75 individual buildings. 4 acres of constructed reality. 2 months of building before a single frame was shot. Capra planted 20 full-grown oak trees that had to be transplanted. He wanted actors to walk naturally through spaces that felt real. For 90 days, Bedford Falls existed as a functioning place. Then they tore it all down and built suburbs. The town where George Bailey learned his life mattered lasted exactly as long as filming did. Then it became another parking lot in the San Fernando Valley. Then there was the colorization battle. Fact number 32. Stewart testified against his own movie. In 1986, Hal Roach Studios released a colorized version, took the black and white classic and painted it with computers. Jimmy Stewart, 78 years old, was furious. He testified before Congress against colorization of classic films. Actually went to Washington. I tried to look at the colorized version, but I had to switch it off. It made me feel sick. For a man who almost never complained publicly, that says everything. The bitter irony? The colorized version was copyrighted while the original remained public domain. So TV stations paid money to broadcast the inferior colorized version instead of showing the original for free. Commerce won over art. It usually does. And then there were the almosts. Fact number 33. W.C. Fields almost played Uncle Billy.
You know what the 3 most exciting sounds in the world are?
Breakfast is served.
Before Thomas Mitchell became Uncle Billy, Capra seriously considered legendary comedian W.C. Fields. Also Walter Brennan. Either would have made Uncle Billy completely different. For Bert the Cop, Capra considered Robert Mitchum before choosing Ward Bond. Thomas Mitchell himself was considered for Mr. Potter. The chemistry we love, the relationships we cherish, all of it almost had completely different faces. Every perfect casting choice exists alongside a dozen alternatives that would have created entirely different films. And here's the company that bet everything. Fact number 34. Liberty Films was born and died here.
Well, yeah, he wants the accounts payable to... What's the matter with you?
It's a Wonderful Life was the first production of Liberty Films, an independent company founded by Capra, William Wyler, and George Stevens right after their war service. They wanted creative freedom. This was their declaration of independence. The financial failure nearly destroyed them. Liberty Films dissolved in April 1951, just 5 years after release. Their dream of independent filmmaking died with Bedford Falls. Sometimes freedom is expensive. Sometimes you bet everything on what matters and lose anyway. And finally, the loan that mirrors everything. Fact number 35. They borrowed everything to make this.
Made up your mind yet? I'll take chocolate. With coconuts?
Bank of America records show Liberty Films borrowed exactly $1,540,000 to make It's a Wonderful Life. Then production costs ballooned to $3.78 million. Think about that irony. A film about a building and loan crisis, about honest men struggling with debt and financial ruin, financed through massive bank loans that nearly bankrupted everyone involved. Frank Capra made a movie arguing that community and human connection matter more than money. He borrowed millions to make that argument, then lost millions when nobody came to watch. George Bailey saved his building and loan. Frank Capra's Liberty Films collapsed under the weight of trying to save cinema. Sometimes art imitates life. Sometimes life crushes art. 42 bells rang. An angel got his wings. We spent 78 years returning to Bedford Falls every December, finding new things we never noticed before. The snow that let us hear the dialogue. The PTSD that made the performance real. The wheelchair that added depth to evil. The child actor who bled. The clerical error that created a tradition. Every frame holds a secret. Every performance carries weight we couldn't understand as children. Maybe that's why we keep coming back. Not just for nostalgia, but because we're different people now. We've lived enough to recognize the pain in George Bailey's eyes. We've felt enough to understand why those bells ring. It's not a perfect film. It was a failure that became a classic, a disaster that became a tradition. But isn't that wonderful? That something so broken, so flawed, so human could become the thing we need most every Christmas? Bedford Falls doesn't exist. It never did. But we keep going back anyway. Because every time a bell rings, somewhere, someone remembers that their life mattered. Even when they forgot. Even when everyone told them it didn't. Your life doesn't have to be perfect to matter.